We have Dave Weinberg, veteran Eagles beat writer, also covered the local area for high school sports, Hall of Fame boxing writer, and more, joining us on the Boardwalk on the hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Always appreciate Dave jumping on the show. Dave, how is Wednesday treating you today?
Oh, terrific! Just got done finished with a little beach time, so it was great.
So, one of the things I want to touch on with you today about the Eagles, and I'm very curious your perspective on this because, you know, as we're progressing closer and closer to the start of the season, one of the things I'm observing, because I'm also consuming the Hard Knocks episodes where they're showing the Chargers and the Rams and what it's like for them in their environments at camp in this, 2020 world that we're living in of this pandemic. And I find it interesting that the Eagles have been able to avoid some of the more serious issues that other teams around the league have been facing. And I want to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, they've done a very good job of containing everything, kind of in their own special little bubble, if you will. They took the challenge head on, establishing protocols, safety first, and making sure everybody was safe and healthy. They had a couple of positive tests early on, but everybody was asymptomatic and was able to come back relatively quickly. And so, they're I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's their medical staff or just their determination and their insistence of staying together. Now, from what I can gather, maybe most of the veterans are staying in the team hotel now instead of going home after practices. At least they're in training camp, and now that everybody's together, maybe that's a factor.
I also got to think about the fact that, we've talked about the importance of Doug Pederson and his role as the head coach of the organization, and I can't get out of my head the video I saw of Andy Reid on the first day of Chiefs training camp, where he came out and said, look, the team that's the most disciplined and stays together is the team that's going to win a championship this year. And I feel like with Doug, listening to him in the media Zoom pressers and observing how this team is going about their business, it feels like, for lack of a better term, the apple hasn't fallen far from the Andy Reid tree here.
Yeah, it hasn't. Doug grew up as a player and a coach under Andy Reid, really, and was his first quarterback in Philadelphia in 1999, and came back as an assistant and followed him to Kansas City. And he kind of follows Andy Reid's playbook, if you will, when it comes to coaching, and it's really rubbed off. He's a stickler for details, relies very strongly on his veteran leadership to handle any problems or whatever. And he's a hands-on kind of coach. People might know him more for his play calling and stuff like that, but he's very much involved in all aspects of the team. His thumbprint is very much on this Eagles organization.
Speaking of thumbprint, I think one guy there's been a lot of questions about coming into the season is Andre Dillard. And if we go by what Doug said, he's very impressed with him. The Eagles are saying that he came in and put on a good amount of muscle during the offseason, which was important for a guy who, let's be realistic, when he came out of college, he wasn't really in an offense that was really a pro-style type offense. So it was important for him to really add some size at left tackle. And with that in mind, Dave, what is your thoughts on Andre Dillard coming into this season?
I had pretty high expectations for him. I thought he approached the offseason the right way, both mentally and physically. From reading from tweets and stuff of the beat writers that are actually at training camp practices, it seems like he's been a bit inconsistent. I know there was a incident today where he kind of got pushed back into Carson Wentz's legs. Fortunately, nothing serious happened or anything, but I know he's very hard on himself. Seems to get frustrated when he makes a mistake, which is good. I mean, you want a guy who is willing to work hard and try to get better, and gets mad when things don't go his way. So he's a little bit inconsistent, but hopefully he'll be able to show the form that that shows why they drafted him in the first round last year. Once the season starts.
You mentioned the fact of how hard he is on himself. Something you and I have touched on before is about the culture that has been built in the Eagles organization. And I heard an interview with someone, Brett Veach. He used to work with the Eagles years ago, and he talked about how the thing he learned from Andy Reid and the Eagles and Howie Roseman is about how it's important to have a certain type of player in an organization. I have to think that the Eagles must have drafted him knowing, Dillard, that he was the kind of guy that wasn't just going to settle or going to be a guy who's just going to be like, I'm good enough, that he was going to be hard on himself. They felt that was something they could work with him on.
Yeah, they do a very good job of doing their homework in most cases, making sure that the guy has the right frame of mind, the right work ethic, the right background, emotional and mental strength to go with the physical strength before they're going to bring him in as a draft pick or even as a free agent. They've obviously made some mistakes along the way, but by and large, they have a certain blueprint for what they're looking for in a player and as a player and a person from a guy that's coming in. And Andre definitely seems to fit that mold that they're looking for.
Dave Weinberg joining us here on a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. You also can check out his extra point columns at 973ESPN.com. Dave, I want to flip it over to the defense because I heard a very interesting comment over the weekend. Derek Gunn, a guy who's also covered the team for a long time, mentioned that Avonte Maddox, that this is his job to win or lose. And that comment really stood out to me. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it seems like Jim Schwartz has made that pretty clear that, Avonte is the guy who's going to be with Darius Slay on the outside. Sidney Jones has been hampered by some injuries here in training camp, which certainly doesn't help his cause. And, if Sidney's going to play at all, it's probably going to be in the slot. And, Avonte has done nothing to suggest that he's not, up to the challenge of being that starting outside corner. And Jim Schwartz seems to have a whole lot of confidence in him.
It's an incredible contrast between Maddox and Jones because Jones was coming out of college, and before he got the Achilles tear, he was regarded one of the best prospects coming out. Avonte Maddox, they said he was too small and he might not be big enough. And it seems like both players have had completely different journeys, and they were both drafted around the same point in the draft, different years.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Sidney came in with everybody thought he was a first-round pick. And they thought the Eagles got a steal in the second round because of his Achilles issues. He was supposed to blossom into this, all Pro Bowl level corner, and it just hasn't happened. I mean, injuries have set him back. Inconsistency has set him back. He just hasn't been able to live up to the potential. He showed some flashes last year. Play here or play there, but he hasn't been able to string together like an entire game, even let alone a season that. Justifies the pick. But however, Avonte has taken the bull by the horns, if you will, as soon as he got in here. He's played some safety. He's played on the outside. He's played some nickel. And he's just one of those guys who always seems to be around the ball. He's a guy with a nose for the football. And, that's something that you really can't teach a lot of guys. And, he's made the most of his opportunities and continues to do so.
Dave, I want to touch on a couple of non-Eagles topics with you as well. And I wanted to start with this story about potentially a Big Ten bubble at Boardwalk Hall. For those who didn't see the story, they could check it out at 97.3 ESPN.com. But basically, Atlantic City's Boardwalk Hall could be a site for the Big Ten to play college football in the winter. What they would do is they would use potentially the proposal, for those who don't know, is Boardwalk Hall, Indianapolis's Dome Stadium, Detroit's Dome Stadium, potentially Minnesota's Dome Stadium to play college football in the winter. So what makes Boardwalk Hall, aside from its proximity, an option for them to do this?
Honestly, I don't know that it does. It would be terrific if it could happen, but I don't think it's big enough anymore. If you look at all the photos that have accompanied these stories, they're all from like 1970s, early 1980s, when the hall could seat 25,000 people. Had no problem fitting a 100-yard field in there. As a matter of fact, when I was a young teenager, I remember going to see the Boardwalk Bowl between University of Delaware and CW Post because a lowercase guy, Larry Washington, was the kicker for the Blue Hens, and CW Post had this hotshot quarterback named Gary Wishard, who went on to become a famous agent. And and the Holy Spirit in Atlantic City used to play there all the time on Thanksgiving. And but now they underwent a renovation around 2000, 2001, and the seating capacity was reduced to about 14,000, maybe a little more for football. But as you saw from the Arena League being there, they had a tough time squeezing a 50-yard field in there. So I just don't see how the dimensions of the Boardwalk Hall are going to be big enough to fit a Big Ten football game in there.
We know that when the Big Ten played their game at Wrigley Field, that they ended up playing actually one direction because the one end zone was too short, and they were worried about the players crashing into the ivy at Wrigley Field. So
right.
Is that even an option in Boardwalk Hall, or is it just at a point right now because of the renovations that the sizing and the dimensions are just maybe not doable at all?
I don't know. I'm thinking back to when the Blackjacks played there, and there was a little bit of room behind the end zones, but it was a 50-yard field. I can't see where they're going to fit, that much yardage. I don't see how it could happen. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they'll have a way to figure it out, but I just can't see how that's how it's going to be configured to where they'd be able to fit a regulation football field in there.
Would it be maybe one of those situations where they just, quote unquote, find a way because they know how big of a deal this is?
Possible. You're going to, on the one end, you're going to have the stage back there. You can't get rid of that. So I guess they're going to have to find a way to lengthen the other end of the arena. And don't get me wrong, I would love to see it. I mean, I think that'd be so cool. There's never been a big major college football conference or game really played there. The fact that the Big Ten is even considering is really exciting. But I'm not an architect, but I don't really know how they're going to be able to figure it out.
And one more day before I let you go. Obviously, New Jersey news happening over the weekend in the fight world. Frankie Edgar wins again at another weight class. I know you've watched this guy multiple times. I've watched him a few different times in person. It seems like no matter what, this guy is just an incredible warrior. And it's really apropos for people who talk about, Jersey tough. I feel like Frankie Edgar in many ways embodies that Jersey tough mentality.
Oh, yeah, he has since he was a wrestler in Toms River and competing at Boardwalk Hall in the high school championships. He's just one of those guys. I mean, there's guys who are bigger, who are more who are stronger, more well-rounded, but he just has that innate toughness in him and has worked incredibly hard over the years to develop more of an all-around game. And it's paid dividends for him. I mean, for him to go through three weight classes really and excel is just fantastic. And he has a tremendous following in New Jersey, as you probably know. He fought in Boardwalk Hall a couple of years ago, and the people packed the place. And it's great that good things happen to good people once in a while, and he's definitely one of those.
He's Dave Weinberg. He's also a good people as well. Joins us every Wednesday for Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Again, follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Veteran Eagles beat writer, of course, covered high school sports, Hall of Fame boxing writer, and more. He's got all kinds of great stuff on his Twitter feed at Dave Weinberg19. Extra point columns at 973ESPN.com. Always appreciate the time and the conversation, Dave.
Oh, thanks, Josh. Oh, and real quick, I just wanted to thank everyone for their response to the column I did a couple of days ago about playing golf with an 80-year-old man who had just lost his wife and was going through some tough times, and he poured his heart out to me, and it really touched me, and it touched a lot of people who read about it. So I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to read it.
Well, I will say this. I'll echo what somebody else told you on Twitter, and that is I think you have the groundwork for a book there. So,
maybe. You never know.
All right, Dave. Take care. We'll catch you next week.
All right, Josh. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.